In this video, we will be exploring photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Look at these food chains and ask yourself, where is the energy being used in this system? So if we look at it, we can see that it might be used through reproduction, through moving, breathing, and growing. Basically, energy is used in these food chains anytime an animal does anything. If living things use energy for anything that they do, we would require a great amount of energy to keep an ecosystem living and an ecosystem running. So where does that energy come from? Well, we talked about producers. And in a food chain, we know that every food chain has to start with producer. This is where the energy comes from. So why are producers called producers? Producers are called producers because they can do something that you and other consumers can't. They can make their own food. So what do producers need to make their own food? Well, they need two basic materials, which include water and carbon dioxide. With these two materials and an energy source, our friendly sun, they are able to create their own food. This is the process that's called photosynthesis. Now this is a big word for saying changing sun into something else. So photo means light or light energy, and synthesis means to change. So photosynthesis therefore means changing light into food. The product or the result of photosynthesis is the creation of food and oxygen. This food is created in the form of sugars or starches. And that is what plants store to break down to use so that they can have their own energy. So before we get further into exploring the process of photosynthesis and cellular respiration, we're going to discuss why photosynthesis is so important in our life. Well, there are three major reasons. The first one being photosynthesis turns the sun's energy into chemical energy that plants can use. The second reason why photosynthesis is so important is because it provides plants with food that our body can use to function. So when we eat plants, we can use that energy to help us function as well. And then the third reason is that photosynthesis provides oxygen to the air. that we breathe. So we know that trees, when we talk about trees, we know that trees are great because they breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. So it provides oxygen to us. So if we look at our food chains again from the start of the video, we notice that, again, they all start with producers. Producers are a way that, through photosynthesis, the energy enters a food chain. Without producers, there's no way that these animals will have energy and be able to pass the energy down the food chain. So therefore, eventually, these animals will die off. So we need a producer, we need photosynthesis and cellular respiration in order for the energy to flow within the ecosystems. So how can we write out scientifically or mathematically the equation for photosynthesis, or what happens? Well, first we start off with light energy, which comes from the sun. And then we add carbon dioxide, which comes from the air, plus water, and that gives food in the form of sugar and starches, and it gives oxygen. So that is photosynthesis in an equation form. Now, just because a plant goes through photosynthesis doesn't mean it's able to survive by just simply creating food. There has to be a way for that food, the sugars and starch, to be broken down so that the plants can use it, and also so that whatever consumes it, the consumer, can also break it down to be able to use. So this is called cellular respiration. The word equation for cellular respiration is food, which again is sugar and starch, plus oxygen. So again, oxygen is needed, and it breaks down into carbon dioxide, and it gives water, and it also gives that energy that living things can use. So, cellular respiration breaks down the food in order to get that energy out of the food that was created through photosynthesis into the ecosystem. What I would like you to do now is stop the video and look at the handout about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. I want you to use the words in the word bank and fill in the information to show the flow of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. When we look at the processes of photosynthesis and cellular respiration together, at first glance it may look as though these processes are the reverse of each other. However, there's an important difference. So if you look carefully at the energy part of each word equation, photosynthesis uses light energy, and cellular respiration results in a different kind of energy. So this energy is the energy that living things can use. So a different form of energy is created, which means that photosynthesis and cellular respiration are not a cycle like the water cycle or the nitrogen cycle that we have been looking at. Rather, it is a flow of energy. So the energy changes as it goes along the food chain the energy changes as it goes from producers to consumers, or even producers and producers using that energy. So photosynthesis to cellular respiration. This diagram is showing the flow of energy and what happens as energy moves from the sun through the food chain. So as it goes through producers, herbivores, and carnivores. What you may notice is the arrows are getting smaller as it moves along the food chain. This is because a lot of energy is wasted as it transfers from one living thing to another in the food chain. So much of this energy that's wasted is energy in body heat. So the waste is through the body heat. And plants can't reuse it. Neither can animals. It just escapes back into the environment. So energy, therefore, is a flow of a one-way path in an ecosystem. So again, this is why it's not a cycle, because it doesn't continually recycle. Some energy is wasted, and it's not completely, all of it is not used in this cyclical form. In all ecosystems, producers depend on a constant supply of energy from the sun to survive. Herbivores depend on plants for the energy they need. Carnivores depend on the herbivores. And scavengers and decomposers depend on everyone else for energy they need. So, again, just an overview, photosynthesis is the production of food for plants by changing sun into food, into starch, and starches and sugar. Cellular respiration is the process that living things break down that food, the sugars and the starch, so that they can use that energy for their needs. Energy flow in an ecosystem is a flow. It's not a cycle, and that's because some of the energy is wasted, and it's not all retained in the same form. To review these concepts, what I would like you to do is complete the comparison frame between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And I would also like you to complete on page 49, communicate numbers 1 to 3 as a formative assessment.